Welcome to Royal Daily Report, your trusted source for the feuds that shook the royal world. No one expected the room to freeze that night. It was one of those grand London galas where everything sparkles. The diamonds, the champagne glasses, even the marble floors seemed to shine. Victoria Beckham stood on stage the way she always did, calm, elegant, and completely in control. People said she could stand in the middle of a storm and never let her voice shake. But on this night, something changed. She was supposed to hand out an award to a young designer. That's it. A simple, polished moment. But halfway through her speech, Victoria paused. She placed her hand on the podium, leaned forward just slightly, and looked straight at a journalist sitting in the crowd. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't crack. It just hardened. And she said 12 words that sliced through the room like a blade. "I kept quiet too long. People need to know what she did." Subscribe to Royal Daily Report now. Don't miss Victoria's explosive revelation. There was no name. There didn't have to be one. Everyone in that room, every reporter, every stylist, every guest holding their breath, they all knew exactly who she meant: Meghan Markle. An 11-second phone recording hit the internet before the lights even dimmed. By morning, it had millions of views. People weren't just shocked, they were stunned. Victoria Beckham had finally spoken, and the world realized something very serious must have happened for her to break decades of silence. What could push the quietest, most controlled woman in British fashion to say something so sharp, so final? To understand that, we have to go back to when this story didn't look like a feud at all, but the beginning of a friendship. When Meghan Markle first stepped into royal life, she wasn't just stepping into a marriage. She was stepping into one of the toughest, most traditional, most heavily watched circles on earth. She was new. She was far from home, and she had no idea how ruthless the British press could be. Stay tuned to Royal Daily Report. We reveal how the friendship began. But Victoria Beckham knew she had survived it. She had learned how to move silently, how to protect herself, how to build an empire without ever letting the world see her break. And because she understood that pressure better than almost anyone, Victoria did something rare. She reached out personally. Sources say she sent Meghan her private contact list, the names of stylists who worked magic, PR experts who could make problems disappear, and even discreet spa owners trusted by A-list clients. These were not names you could Google. They were doors only opened for a chosen few. Victoria wanted Meghan to have protection, a safety net, support from someone who had walked this road before. That alone would have been generous. But she didn't stop there. Soon, the two were spotted together at Wimbledon, talking and laughing like old friends. Victoria even sent pieces from her fashion line directly to Kensington Palace, letting Meghan choose items for fittings, something she didn't offer to just anyone. People inside the fashion world whispered the same thing. Victoria didn't have to do any of this. She chose to, and for a while, the friendship seemed golden, warm, elegant, and full of mutual respect. No one watching from the outside could have guessed what was coming. Don't forget to subscribe to Royal Daily Report for the betrayal. As Meghan stepped deeper into the spotlight, the world watched her wardrobe just as closely as her words. And Victoria Beckham's designs quietly became part of that new royal image. Meghan praised Victoria's clothes in interviews. Victoria's team celebrated behind the scenes. Having a duchess wear your designs is the kind of approval that can change a brand's future. At Wimbledon, the two women were photographed whispering during matches, leaning toward each other comfortably. There was a sense of partnership, of two powerful women forming an alliance that blended Hollywood sparkle with British high fashion. For a while, it really did look perfect to women who understood fame, to women who understood pressure, to women who seemed to genuinely trust each other. But behind the camera flashes and the polished smiles, something small, almost invisible, had already begun to shift. A crack no one noticed at first, a whisper that grew louder, a shadow that slowly crept into the friendship. And soon that quiet friendship would become something far more complicated, something that would eventually lead back to that gala stage and to Victoria's unforgettable words. The shift didn't happen overnight. It started quietly, the way most storms do, with a whisper no one wanted to hear. By late 2019, sources say Meghan began to feel that something inside her inner circle wasn't secure. Royal Daily Report, bringing you when trust broke. Personal details, tiny things, the kind only a handful of people knew, somehow kept appearing in the press. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, but it felt personal. Someone, somewhere, was talking. No names were attached, but behind the scenes, one name kept surfacing. Over cups of tea in private rooms, during hushed conversations at events, whispers swirled, could it be Victoria Beckham? To most people, the idea sounded ridiculous. Victoria had spent years guarding her own privacy like a fortress. She knew better than anyone how damaging a leak could be. Why would she ever risk her reputation like that? But suspicion does strange things. It doesn't need proof, only a spark. And once the spark lit, Meghan's behavior changed. Sources say she didn't confront Victoria. She didn't demand answers. She simply pulled away. Texts that used to be answered within minutes suddenly went quiet. The invitations slowed, then stopped. And without a single fight, a friendship that once looked solid began to crumble in complete silence. Victoria felt the distance long before she understood it. People close to her described it as sudden, confusing, and painfully cold, like being shut out of a room without knowing why the door had closed. And as the months passed, the silence between them grew thicker. It became clear that something had snapped, even if neither woman said it out loud. Subscribe now to Royal Daily Report. We expose the cold shoulder. By the time Meghan and Harry stepped back from their royal duties, the separation was complete. There were no joint appearances anymore. No friendly photos, not even the polite kind of messages public figures send each other to keep the peace. The Beckhams had vanished from the Sussexes' circle, not gradually, but entirely. One insider described it this way. It was like flipping a switch. One day they were close, the next day they were strangers. Victoria, who had opened doors, shared contacts, and offered guidance during Meghan's earliest days in the UK, suddenly found herself on the outside of a friendship she once believed was genuine. But she didn't speak. She didn't complain. She didn't even ask for explanations. Victoria did what she always did during difficult times. She kept her head down and focused on her work. She poured herself into her fashion empire, her family, and her public commitments. Still, the silence between the two women didn't fade. It grew heavier year after year, sitting between them like a shadow neither acknowledged. Most people thought this quiet distance would last forever, unresolved, unexplained, and never spoken about again. But then came the moment that changed everything. Not a whisper, not a rumor, a decision, a charity event, and a betrayal Victoria could not ignore. This was the moment, according to sources, that truly cut deep. Royal Daily Report, your window into the charity betrayal. Victoria Beckham had been preparing a children's hospital fundraiser, a project she cared about, a project she invested months of time, creativity, and even her own money into. The event was meant to raise millions, and the organizers were thrilled when Meghan agreed to co-host. A duchess standing beside Victoria Beckham would guarantee visibility, donations, and credibility. It was perfect until it wasn't. Weeks before the event, something unexpected happened. According to insiders, Meghan told the organizers that Victoria's name didn't align with the royal vision. Shortly after, an email allegedly written by one of Meghan's aides surfaced. It read, "Per Duchess's request, please consider alternative fashion sponsorship." Concerns have been raised about brand alignment and external press narratives. Just like that, Victoria's name vanished from the posters. Her contributions disappeared. Her months of planning were erased without warning or explanation. Sources close to her say she felt humiliated. She had donated designs, covered early expenses, and lent her reputation freely, not for money, not for publicity, but because she believed in the project. But instead of being thanked, she was quietly removed. Don't forget to subscribe to Royal Daily Report for David's response. For Victoria, this was not just a professional slight. It was the moment she realized the friendship she once protected had turned into something painfully once, and that realization, the shock, the disappointment, the hurt, became the silent foundation for everything that followed. Because sometimes betrayal doesn't come with shouting. Sometimes it arrives quietly in the form of a missing name on a poster. If Victoria's words during the gala were a spark, David Beckham's response was gasoline. The morning after her speech went viral, David posted a simple family photo. Him, Victoria, and their children gathered around a dinner table laughing. No dramatic lighting, no cryptic symbols, just warmth, unity, and calm. But underneath the photo sat a sentence that felt like a thunderclap. Truth always comes out in the end. He didn't tag anyone. He didn't point fingers. He didn't need to. People recognized what this was. Not a football legend posting a family snapshot, but a husband standing beside his wife in the quiet, powerful way only David Beckham can. Within hours, support trickled in from high places. A supermodel friend added heart emojis. A designer reposted David's photo with the caption, "Some people mistake kindness for weakness." Meanwhile, Meghan's circle, usually quick to defend her, went completely silent. Oprah silent. Serena Williams silent. Even Prince Harry, often the first to step forward, said nothing. Royal Daily Report bringing you the deafening silence. Paparazzi caught him at the airport, head down, lips pressed tight, avoiding questions. And in that silence, a strange thing happened. Victoria started to look stronger. Meghan started to look alone. It wasn't a fight anymore. It was a shift in the room, a rebalancing of power. And the world sensed something bigger was coming. Late one night, when most people were asleep and the world felt quiet, a new shock hit the internet. A 14-second audio clip, sure 6 seconds. Not even enough time for a commercial, but it was enough. In the recording, a woman's voice, calm but sharp, said, "She's lucky I don't say what I know about her." No name was mentioned. But the uploader claimed the voice belonged to Meghan Markle and that she was talking about Victoria Beckham. The clip spread like wildfire. 6 million views in hours. People weren't arguing about sides anymore. They were stunned that such a recording even existed. Some insisted it had to be fake. Others swore it sounded exactly like her. Even Meghan's most loyal supporters hesitated. One of her biggest fan accounts deleted their pinned tweet praising her and replaced it with a single line. "If that audio is real, I don't know what to say anymore." Subscribe to Royal Daily Report now and hit the bell icon. Victoria remained silent. She didn't post, she didn't defend herself. But a source close to her offered 5 words that revealed everything. She was disappointed, but not surprised. Those words hit harder than the audio itself because they suggested this wasn't a one-time issue. This was a pattern, a history, a wound that had been ignored for too long. And the world suddenly understood. Victoria's gala comments weren't random. They were the beginning of the truth finally coming out. After the audio leak, the story could have settled. It could have faded like so many celebrity feuds do, but instead, it grew. Word from the industry began to spread softly, cautiously, the way dangerous rumors always do, that Victoria Beckham was considering something she had never done before. A full sit-down interview to address Meghan Markle directly. Not a red carpet soundbite, not a vague caption, a long-form interview. Victoria's version, Victoria's truth. Sources said she felt people only knew half the story, and she was finally ready to share the rest. The moment that whisper hit the air, Meghan's PR team reportedly went into crisis mode. Emergency calls, urgent meetings, discussions about potential legal steps, all before Victoria had even confirmed she wanted to speak. Royal Daily Report, your window into the PR panic. But the damage wasn't coming from an interview. It was coming from anticipation. The idea that Victoria, a woman who built an entire brand on poise and silence, was ready to speak, that alone tilted the entire story. And each hour that passed without Meghan responding made the shift even sharper. Victoria looked prepared. Meghan looked cornered, and the world waited to see which woman would break the silence next. The story ends where it began, with a woman standing in a quiet room choosing her words carefully. Victoria Beckham has lived through decades of fame. She has survived scandals, pressure, headlines, and rumors. But through it all, she remained the same, calm, collected, silent when others would explode. She believed silence protected people. She believed silence kept peace. She believed silence was the strongest form of grace. But in the end, silence became its own kind of prison. When a reporter finally asked her why she chose to speak at the gala, Victoria didn't raise her voice. She didn't attack. She didn't try to destroy anyone. She simply said, "I stayed quiet because I thought it would protect everyone." But all it did was protect the wrong person. Those words echoed everywhere across headlines, across social circles, across the entire narrative that had been building for years. They weren't angry. They weren't dramatic. They were final. They marked the moment Victoria Beckham stepped out of the shadows of silence and into the light of truth. A truth she guarded for far too long. A truth that someone pushed too far. And now the world waits. Because when a woman like Victoria speaks once, she may speak again. And if the story she hinted at is only half of what really happened, then this chapter isn't the end. It's the beginning of a truth that has been waiting quietly, patiently, for the moment someone finally decided to stop protecting the wrong person. This was Royal Daily Report, uncovering Victoria Beckham's powerful truth. Subscribe now and stay informed on every word Victoria speaks next. Stay connected with Royal Daily Report, where silence finally breaks.